All right, all right, all right, all right. Yes, yes, yes. People, we are back for another open court discussion live in the Counselor's Corner. Good evening. I'm your host, David Lorenzo Glover, aka the Controversial Counselor. Joining me is my co host, the Big Bad Wolf, Herb Lewis.
Ow!
Okay, okay. If you know us, you know this week we had to come back with the topic dealing with the disrespect of our young boys, considering we discussed the disrespect of our young girls last week. So tonight, Monday night, December 8th, our topic of discussion will be boys will be boys, breaking the cycle of disrespect. Tonight we will be tackling another tough topic that's on every parent's mind. Why are young boys so quick to disrespect their elders, peers, and each other? From social media to parenting styles, we will explore the root causes of this growing concern and examine the impact it's having on our communities. It's time to get real about the state of respect in our society and what we can do to foster a more positive, empathetic culture. Stay with us as we dive into critical conversations and explore ways to bridge the gap between generations and build a brighter future for our kids. This should be another personal and insightful broadcast we touched on before, but because of the significance of the topic, it's not going anywhere soon. Please like and share our video, and don't forget to tell anyone who cares about our young boys to please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. 997 subs, three away from 1K. Uh, away from 1K. So, people, let's wrap this shit up right now, tonight. Let's close it out and get this 1K and keep pushing forward to 1100. So, here we are. Another Monday in December. Had the opportunity to run into the big bad wolf
Yes,
this
sir.
weekend at Wizards game against the Hawks. Good time, good game for the most part. Thanks for the invite.
Man, you
I
already
missed
know,
the game in
man.
a while.
I got to show my piece off. It's not too often. My birthday is 2 days away. For those who don't know, it'll be number 54. Working on number 55. I generally don't do a whole lot for my birthday. As David said, I went through the original plans I had. Somebody tried to throw a damper on the Big Bad Bulls parade. People, let me let y'all know a little secret. Once the trains start, it don't stop. So you either own or you off. All right. Just so we understand that my plans don't stop for nobody for nothing unless I'm dead. My brother hooked me up with a nice little Invictus. Shout out to T. Thank you very much. I will wear that in good health. Like Dave said, I came through. He was there. One half of the dynamic duo met up. It's, of course, good seats, actually. I didn't realize how good those seats were until I got in the ring. I was like, oh, it's like, all right. But people, let me I'm a I'm a I love history. This is put it this, especially history of combat. But I would tell you this: get out and travel. Shout out to my man Carnell Birch. He's my right hand man, going back to college days. Him and Shino Ellis. Shout out to those two cats, man. We did a lot together. But we done hit Southern Ontario from Toronto all the way down to Port Dalhousie to Niagara Falls, Ontario, Old Maple Leaf Village. Get out and travel. We always talk about, well, I always talk about exposure, for kids and how it broadens their horizons. I didn't do in DC a whole lot because I was only there for the better portion of a day. I just said, you know what, I'm gonna camp in and just get some shut eye. About 4 o'clock, I went down, got a ride down to I guess I could say downtown DC. It happened to be the man dropped me off, did me a whole solid, dropped me off right at the National Mall, and I didn't realize how compact DC is. Like most of the stuff is there is walkable. I mean, even for people who really aren't that ambulatory, you can get around in a wheelchair, whatever the case is. And then they got the mechanized scooters, so getting around is really, really easy. Go see my brother said, go see the world, but go start out in your own backyard, your own state, man, and go see this place, man. This I was so enamored with all the buildings in DC, the architecture, the history, travel, man. It really does something. At least for me, I hope it would have the same impact upon everybody else that it did for me. Go see things, man. Broaden your horizons. It's a way to get out and change your perspective, if you will. Because for me, it always does. And it's funny. I remember years ago, my man I was working with would always point out. He said, "Every time you come from out of town, you always quiet." I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "Yeah, yeah, you are." And I never really thought about it because I'm reflecting on all the things I've done, the people I've met, the things I've seen. And it's like, you know what, man? I really don't have a care in the world. I might be working 60, 65 hours a week, but you know what, man? As far as I'm concerned, I'm blessed to be able to do that. I'm in the health to be able to do that. And a lot of people, they can't do that. We got young heads that's dropping off earlier than 54. I don't have that problem. So you know what? I'm going to keep putting feet to concrete, pen to paper, voice to a mic, and we going to keep this thing going. Salute.
All right, all right. So again, we've been talking about the overall culture in schools, communities, and everybody know it. We talk about it all the time. You don't got to travel too far. Even in some of your neighborhoods, the disrespect of the culture, and it's just not black folks. It's all of these young people disrespectful as hell. And I guess either you can ignore it and just mind your business, or you can be in the heat of the battle. I know my full time job is I'm in the heat of the battle um, throughout all day. Time I walk in, it's nothing but disrespect. It start off first thing in the morning. Uh, the language used, the shut the fucks up, shut the fuck up, shut up, bitch, motherfucker, this and that. And I'm not even. I'm kind of desensitized towards it because I've been uh, a part of this culture like for years, but it amazes me. And I'm like, man, I think back to when I was 12 or 13. We would blackmail each other if one of us slipped up and said a cuss word. We would actually, and that's between me and my siblings. If they slipped up and said, damn, shit, or whatever, oh, that penny candy, drop it, or I'm telling. These kids don't care, don't care, don't have a worry in the world. But again, I've talked about it before. A lot of it is because some of y'all parents say, "Oh, it's just words. It doesn't matter." So they're able to say all these type of foul that we consider bad words. Well, we couldn't even say lie. Growing up, you had to say you're telling a story. Because if I said to my grandmother, they lying, that was a bad word. You had to say story. They're telling a story. Uh, which we now know that telling stories is people making millions of dollars for being great storytellers. But times have
Mm-hmm.
changed, the culture has changed, and tonight we're going to tackle about the disrespect from boys. And being that we're two black males, I'm sure throughout this broadcast we will tell a little bit about our stories of growing up being black males and black young boys and to men, and how our paths were shaped and how we came, might have made some bad decisions. Some of the decisions we probably already spoke on before, but if you tune in or if you catch a clip later, then you may hear some things like, wow, I didn't know he did that. I didn't know he did that. Trust me, I was good in school. I had a, they always talk about hitting the switch, having the ability to be a certain way. I was able to be a certain way in school, followed the protocol, did my homework, did my work, was respectful, well mannered, liked by teachers. I can't say once I got off that bus and went home and did after I did my homework, because that was the key. I was still kind of conditioned that to be in that school mindset until I got done with my homework. Once I got done with my homework and got that first knock on the door, you coming outside, and it was on. Anything was possible within reasons for me, because I always value my mother, my grandparents, my aunts, and people that oversaw me and who did things for me to say I'm only gonna take it so far. But I would we would reach and push the limits as far as possible, and we wasn't always respectful either to certain people who we felt treated us wrong. So it's a lot to this situation, and it is a story. It ain't a lie. This is a story about uh, the rise of disrespect with the young boys.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same mode. The only difference was, the community center. I mentioned that last week, and I've always mentioned this, and it's never going to be far from my lips. Um, wasn't tolerated there, so you couldn't get away with using profanity because if you did, the others would shout you out. It was like, yo, you ain't supposed to be speaking like that. We gonna blow you in. So, to a young man, because we were 14, 15, 16, not quite at that age, but we at the age where we knew well enough. And it was like, yo, that's your warning. The next time we hear it, you're gone. And we didn't want to be kicked out of the center because that's where everybody was. That's where all the activities was. The basketball. We were fortunate enough to be able to learn archery at a young age. And I don't know too many inner city kids, regardless of their ethnicity, who were able to partake in archery. Some of the trips that we took, definitely the basketball was always front and center. Especially when Biddy League was in place. You can go to the boys club, and from 9 o'clock till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, not but basketball. And you didn't go down to 17th Street acting no fool because Knuckles and crew, they was not having any of that. And then you had a confluence of literally everybody in the city. And when I say everybody in the city, I mean from you might see a school teacher down there, you might see some admins. You definitely saw, your peers and they aunts and uncles and mothers and fathers, and you weren't getting away with much because they would blow you in too. Yo, such and such is down there acting up. You got the old come here. And once you got to come here, you knew it was a wrap. So we um we were fortunate enough to have that village, around us, keeping us on the rails, if you will. But with the advent and the rise of single parent homes across culture, that village isn't what it used to be. Now, we could blame the progression in society. Some people say feminism. Some people say people out here having just um random sex with people. Yeah, all of that's a factor. Nobody's denying that. And if anyone's denying that, all you got to do is ask them, let me see your family portrait of your immediate family, and you'll see a lack of male presence. Now, with that being said, that does not mean, I want people to understand this, that does not mean every male you come across is a good practitioner of behaving well. We know this. We see men out here doing dumb stuff, doing things that we would not consider morally upstanding, getting themselves in trouble, disrespecting people, regardless of whatever it is that they have going on in their lives. When we came up, being respectful, regardless of what you had going on in your personal life, professional life, or love life, that was always number one. Respect the pastor, respect your parents, even biblical principles. Honor your mother and your father that their days may be long. We embody that. And we were taught that. Yes, we were taught from biblical principles, but we were taught from biblical principles for a very good reason. Now, boys and girls, yes, when it comes to certain things, they're taught the same. So the who, what, where, when, why, and hows, and the buys all come together. The difference between girls and boys is this: you have to put a little bit more structure around your boys because they're not given the grace once they reach a certain age. So they're not given the grace by the school system. They're not given the grace by law enforcement. And depending on where they work at and who they work for, they're not given the grace by employers. So you can't go in there with a smart mouth as a man. You can't go in there being flippant at the lip as a man and be hot tempered. Why? Because they're quick to tell you to go. We don't need you. I got a stack of applications and people looking to replace you. So this is why it becomes important. And I always say this: you have to start at a young age. And it's never true with boys. Temper tantrums at a young age, you got to stamp that out. Because if you allow it to fester, it's going to carry on. So what happens when that kid gets in grade school? He's labeled. He's labeled as a malcontent, and that follows him. Especially if that child stays in the same school district with the same admins, the same school board, and everything else. Oh, they write that up. Child has a behavioral issues. They go back and look in your file in sixth grade. You've been a behavioral issue since you were in second grade, and Miss Such and Such was your teacher. And you're saying, damn, how the hell do y'all know that? That's how. They keep files like the FBI. So you label. The one thing you don't want as a male is to be labeled. Labeled as a troublemaker, as a malcontent, somebody that has social issues because you become a pariah. They put you in the back of the class, they bury you, and they forget about you. It's it's fortunate enough, I suppose I can use the word fortunate. I don't know how necessarily fortunate it is that we have no child left behind because a lot of these kids would not get a high school diploma. They would be left in there till they're old enough to just grade out of school. And yes, you can. And a lot of these kids don't know that. They don't know at 21 you can be pushed out of school whether you can read, function or not. Don't care. And where it's left for you, the streets. And the streets don't tolerate disrespect the way other people and places do. You might get away with some things in a place of business. Streets, yeah, they gonna take you out. Homeless, shelter, they ain't not playing that. If they tell you don't touch something you do, it's on. And these are the things that men aren't given the grace for that women are. And that's a difference. So it's like a lattice work. You ever go to somebody's house that has beautiful roses and they just seem to just really, really grow and bloom? That's because they tied them up the lattice works and they directed their growth. And this is what you have to do with young boys. You have to direct their growth. It's like breaking in a wild stallion. Not everybody can break in a wild stallion, just like not everybody is equipped to raise a young man. I know we hear this all the time, that women can't raise boys. They can, but here's the catch. They can't raise them to be what they need them to be. What I mean by that is this: they can instill in them the reasons why. They can instill in them all those things that women want in a man. But what they can't instill in him is how to think like a man. Why? Because women aren't men. They're not biologically wired to think like men. They're not biologically wired to understand that there's a different set of circumstances that they have to deal with being a man. They don't have to deal with the competition because most men are taught and brought up don't strike women. They're not brought up and taught not to strike a man that challenges you. And that is one of the key differences. So when we say that women can't raise a man, they can't. They're not ready. They don't have to be ready for combat at the slightest hint that disrespect is being put before them. They're not tasked with defending people. whether they knew him or not. Because I might be sitting in the bar just like a clip. I wish I could see that clip. It was it was a bar setting, and a guy looked like he just randomly walked up to a female, said something, and he just started teeing off on her. Next thing you know, he had about 10 heads on him, beating and stomping him. It might come to a situation like that. I know I was at, I'm not going to mention any names. True situation. Like David said, we talk about two things. I was at work in a restaurant. I'm not going to mention the restaurant because if I do, people will zero in, people that know me. And there was a couple, and this couple used to come in all the time. I mean, regular, Saturday night, coffee. I'm not going to mention what they had other than breakfast. And I don't know what was said between the two of them. All I know was the brother hauled off, teed off on Shorty like she owed him a nice sum of money. And I turned around, I was like, yo, man, you can't be doing Shorty like that. Had to get between them, and are you okay? Yeah, yeah. Now, far be it for me to tell her not to go home with him, because that would have been my suggestion, but I knew she was going to go home with him. So I had to intervene there. It's not the first time have had to intervene in domestic situations. So sometimes, and that wasn't necessarily part of my job. So sometimes the situation might come where he has to put himself in the line of fire. Women generally aren't doing that. Women aren't necessarily tasked with doing that. So sometimes, even though it might go against your understanding, you might have to do something that just say, hey, look, I might have to put myself in harm's way just to save somebody that I don't know. It happens. So these are the things that women inherently can't teach men because it's not biologically wired in them to do so. Now, a child, yeah, they'll step in there and do that because that's a child. But another full grown adult, no, they ain't doing that. So there's a lot of things in there that women can't do that only men are capable of doing.
Just before we you get into all that, like some of the root causes that I came across when they talk about now with this generation, and we talk about the lack of positive role models. There's role models. You got to be accepting of role models, and these young people are not accepting of role models for whatever reason. Uh, and I'm speaking in the perspective as a black man. I've been at schools. The first, actually, since I got in the profession of public school education, actually, the first high school that I worked at, we had it all. It was a dream team of black males. You had a black counselor and myself. You had a couple black science teachers. You had a couple black, two or three black math teachers. The athletic director was black. Uh, you had a couple black gym teachers, and these were males. These were males, and you had a couple black social studies teachers, and you had it all. You had it all. Like, and it, it was set up for these males to be like, man, I need to gravitate. Now a lot of them did, and I see when I see on social media, I see a lot of the people that went to the school, and I'm friends with some of them that they went on to do well, and they connected, and even then, that was in 2005 when I was at that school from 2005 to 2011. But now even look down with the middle school kids that I've been in the middle school setting. I think this is my 12th year. That is, black males in the building, and these kids, oh, I can't stand them. That fat motherfucker, that bald head, such and such. And I'm like, man, when I went to school, and if it was somebody that looked like me, we all gravitated toward them, and we all knew that whatever they're gonna be telling us is gonna be kind of projection of our future. That they gonna drop some seeds that you need to listen to. No, not these years. They gonna find out the hard way. And I look at it's working in middle school. I say, well, when y'all go to high school, it's going to be a different ball game. It's going to be a different ball game. And one of the examples I always tell them, you don't you don't have to be there. You don't have to be in that building. There's a certain thing called alternative ed that all your peers that go to school from 7:45 to 2:35 or something get out in high school and maybe work a job, go to driver's ed, play sports and all that. Your ass will be going to school from 6 to 10, Monday through Thursday, sitting around not doing shit all throughout the day. They got to go to school while they out enjoying their teenage years, hanging out, doing stuff. So you don't have to be there. High school has tons of programs that you don't have to, they don't have to put up with, and that's part of the process. Like when you get older, we don't have to put up with your nonsense. There's alternatives for you to go and do. In middle school, your hands kind of tied. You gotta kind of got to deal with it and bear and grin and take the you know take the backlash and all that stuff. And some people can't take it and they get the hell out of Dodge. I'd be damned if I let a kid take my livelihood away for anything. So um, I'm good on that. But the role models are there. You got to accept the role models. And maybe a lot of it is the home environment. If you don't accept love or teaching from others and you kind of got that message that everything is toxic, because sometimes parents can put that in their kids and just go
Yeah.
back and forth, and there's all types of arguments and debates, and they talk about granddad, grandma, your auntie ain't this and that. So kids start believing that, like, I can't trust nobody. So no matter what anybody says, you start having that screw mindset. Greg said, why does race have to be a determinant element in a person being a suitable role model? It doesn't have to be, but as a black man, I'm going to speak from my black perspective. That's how, so it doesn't have to be. And whereas if it was someone Caucasian or whatever the case is, but we do live two different upbringings, whatever. Our history is different.
Yes, that's
History and culture is different.
to give him a more succinct answer, because America went through the history that it did. There are going to be certain elements that you, as a Caucasian male, you can't really identify with what somebody that might be Hispanic, Middle Eastern, or African American is enduring. So they're gonna look at you when you say something to them, and they're gonna, and this is where the disrespect starts to kind of just kind of seep through. Like David said, the parents might have put that seed in them, and if that seed is allowed to grow without actually being directed, that's when they say, "Well, what do you know about you? Pardon the use of the term. You just a honky." Now, where do you think they learned that term at? Never mind having the determination to use it. And people say, "Well, I never." No, you wouldn't, because you're not subject to those type of things. Like if you go into the school system and you look at the records of discipline, certain ethnicities are treated harsher. The transgressors aren't treated as youthful outbursts. They're treated as if they're problems. That's what I was saying. Your record follows you, so they'll look at that and they'll say, "Oh, this person has been a malcontent since the second grade." So they won't do any research into why this individual is behaving like that. And next year we're gonna actually dig more and deeper into this. I mentioned the ACEs term for anybody that hasn't been around in the last 2 or 3 episodes. The Advanced Childhood, I can't remember what the E stands for right now. The Advanced Childhood Experiences. All of these have a role in some way, shape, or form where the parents pass down their problems to the kids, not necessarily hereditarily, but through their actions and their speech. So if you had a parent who has had nothing but problems with the school district and that child is in the same school district, then you got two forces that oppose each other. And as opposed to trying to work together, they're adjutants towards each other. So there's no solution. So you don't if you don't have a buffer in there that's saying, hey man, have any of your staff sat down and had a discussion with this young man, or and we're talking about young men, so I'll just leave it there, with this young man as to what his upbringing is like, what his community is like, what he has to deal with every day. And it's not until those things are understood at a micro level that things start to change, not change, start to. Because until I know and understand what an individual is going through, I'm assuming that everything once they walk out of the school setting is fine. And what people don't realize is in school for the 6, 7, 8 hours a day, that might be the only time that that male child is not talked about in such a manner that he doesn't look at himself as anything worthy of getting respect. The first person that anyone needs to respect is themselves. If an individual lacks self respect, they're not going to respect anybody else because they don't see themselves as being in the position of receiving respect. So if I don't respect myself, then why am I going to go to work and why am I going to go to school and respect the teachers? Why am I going to respect the stranger on the street? They don't respect me. I don't respect myself. I'm just going to be out here doing whatever. I'm going to be wilding with my pants sagging, saying all kinds of things, just doing whatever I want to because I don't care. Nobody's shown me a reason to care. Nobody's given me something to care about. This is this is one of the ways you can tell somebody who might be going down that path as somebody who's not. They're going in the opposite direction. Give them something valuable, and in about 2 or 3 months, ask them where it is. Ask them what they do with it. And if they tell you they don't know, then they don't value things. And that value system is where it all begins. So if you go to homes where students are taught how to value things, how to treat things, because the way you treat things is generally the way you treat yourself. Case in point, I've had this cell phone for about 6, 7 years. Most people don't do that. Now, granted, the phone's working, but I need to update it just because the memory is going on and everything else. Most kids don't do that. Why? Okay, mom and dad go give me another one. They don't value things. They treat
Let
things.
me interject.
Yeah, go ahead.
That reminds me of shout out to Diamond Flowers. This was female. One of my female students that was at that original high school that I worked at when I came to Baltimore. I used to use a certain kind of pens, and one day I let her. She had to do something, and she had to sign it. She's like, Mr. Glover, give me that pen. Give me that pen. I said, nah, I don't give nobody these pens. I don't give nobody these pens. These ain't Papermate pens or whatever. And but I ended up giving her a couple pens, and then she, as she was in college, and I don't know if she had graduated. I think she might have still been in college, but years had went by because I left that school her senior year. She sent me a picture and she was like, Mr. Glover, I still got them. I still got these pens. And I was like, wow, because she valued our relationship. Actually, she was the one student that was really upset that I was leaving
Mhm.
during her senior year. And things come twofold because actually it's right here. My book right here, she went to school for I don't know her exact major. It was something to do with English and all that. But she was the one who edited this book, the
Oh,
editor of this book. And so those pens and all that stuff, the foundation was already set for her, and she ended up editing my book. Um, yeah. Man, that those type of relationships is beautiful. Like little things lead to big things. And boy, she rolled me the whole time when I was getting ready to leave that school. When I packed up my was when I was packing up my boxes. Why are you packing up your boxes? Because I'm leaving. I'm going to a new school. Why do you got to do this? Why you got to do this right now? I was like, when am I going to do it? School is about to let out. I gotta leave. And she wasn't feeling it, and she voiced this shit like, "I hope the first day of school next year you forget where you got to go and you end back up here, and they make you stay here." And but those are the relationships that, as Herb said, like value. She valued our relationship. I value my relationship with her because I know I meant a lot to her, and I had to I had to kind of be uh kind of subtle and stroking like and just kind of culture along the way. Like I gotta leave. I got a promotion. Sometimes you get promotions. And she's like, well, why can't you work the position here? And then she's like, who's in that position here? And then I told her it was. She was like, why is she in that position? You're like an icon here. You should be here. I was like, I gotta go on the other avenues. But every now and then you get those kids that value relationships. So again, to go back to my original, role models are there for people. They're there. You got to be willing to accept it. And a lot of the toxic thoughts, like we've been saying, comes from the household, the community, the parents that won't permit a kid to say, you know what? I'm going to open up and trust this teacher. I'm going to trust and believe in the words that they said, and I'm going to follow their lead. You don't have that. We just a chaotic society going all over the place because you already know they don't trust law enforcement. So in the schools,
Right.
you mean to tell you don't trust teachers. You damn sure don't trust the people that call you on the phone about bills and you're in stores. You got people following you around and all that stuff. What do y'all expect? What do we really expect to happen when we're in a society of non-trusting individuals that don't trust anyone? What y'all think gonna happen? Oh, I know. You're gonna go to church. You're gonna pray, and everything's gonna be all right. Excuse me, homies. Get the fuck out of here. I'm gonna keep saying that. Get the fuck out of here. That's what y'all really, really, really think that's going on. Now y'all gonna get me mad up in here about this subject.
It's funny how you said at the top of the broadcast, we got stories because we all have stories. And you know what the funny thing? The older I get, man, the more I cherish these stories for people who don't know, who are unaware. Yes, I spent a significant amount of time in my under 17 life in foster care, and it worked out well. I was in a small little hamlet, and just literally on the shore of Lake Ontario called Alcott. Some of you may have never heard of it, and you know what? It don't matter. I was there for the formative years of my preteen years. So from the time I was there for 3.5 years, so all essentially from the time that I was 8 to almost 12, with a family, intact family, mother, father. They have 5 kids, and I can't begin to list the things that I learned there. When we were leaving, I remember this day like it was yesterday. Sitting in the driveway, a caseworker was out there. We had all the stuff packed up, and my brother was ecstatic. Couldn't wait to get back home. And here I am full of tears. Like somebody took my favorite toy and destroyed it in front of me. I'm full of tears. And I cried the entire way back home. It was about a 45-minute drive, maybe. And there's a song that I hold near and dear to my heart. Lionel Richie, I'm on my way. Stuck on you. Got this feeling deep inside of my soul that I just can't touch. Yeah, I'm singing. Yes, I'm on my way. Mighty. And every time I hear that song, it takes me back to that moment, sitting in that rock-filled driveway that we have spent so many years playing around as kids. That is what David's talking about when he says that you have to allow something, you have to trust something. Because I didn't know these people didn't know me. But the seeds were planted for me to be respectful of things, learn what I can from who I can, and to never, regardless of the situation, be nasty to people, and I'll say this, and things that are trying to help you, because you never know where your help comes from. You just don't. And we have gotten so far away from just basic humanity and commonality that the moment we see something we don't like, we want to hurt it. I've seen, without being too graphic, I've seen somebody, had a dog and there was a stray cat. She wanted to stick the dog on the cat. I'm like, why would you do that? That cat's not bothering you. She's like, I don't like cats. I'm thinking the cat may not like humans, but you don't see the cat running up on you trying to scratch you. Until then, and until this day, I never spoke to that individual. I could care less. That individual could be in dire straits. I wouldn't help because I'm just that type of person. Don't do harm to things that haven't done harm to you, and that's borderline what the respect issue is. People are out here doing harm to things that don't deserve it. Now, if something or someone has done you wrong, I understand not dealing with them, not respecting them to the point where you just leave them alone. Hey, you got yourself into that situation, you get yourself out of that. But we have too many people that are looking to put somebody in a bad situation because they don't like it, because they quote unquote disrespected them. Well, first of all, you out here living foul anyway. You out here robbing and thugging and doing all this stuff, and you don't have to. Well, man, I ain't going to work for the white man. Who you think everybody else is working for? Very few people out here are not working for somebody else, even if you own your own company. Elon Musk, the Tesla brand, um, Jobs, Steve Jobs. Everybody's working to sell to somebody else. Everybody's working for $1, some way, somehow. Don't matter what you think. This world runs on relationships, and if you're not respectful, you can't develop a relationship with anybody because nobody's gonna trust you. And that boils down the essence, like David just said. If you don't trust somebody, how you working with them? If you don't want to listen to somebody, how you gonna learn? He's sitting there, I'm sitting here, everybody that's sitting here and listening has listened to somebody that they didn't know because they had to develop some trust in somebody somewhere, somehow. I remember one time I was in Niagara Falls, Ontario. I was having mechanical problems with my car. An OPP officer, Ontario Provincial Police, was kind enough to push me to the border to where my car cooled down and started and I was able to get home. That officer didn't have to do that. Wasn't in his job description. But I was respectful. And this is what we happen with a lot of males who travel. They don't think they gotta be respectful. They go on a field trip and they want to start wilding. They get into the hotel room. They don't want to listen to anybody. Well, you just a chaperone. I ain't gotta listen to you. Don't you realize that if the chaperone wasn't there, the trip doesn't occur?
Let me interject right quick. Everything I learned this from counseling 101. Everything is about relationships. Everything is about relationships. Uh, and people need to understand no matter what, you have to have good relationships wherever you at. Everything is relationships. Siblings at home, relationships. How close you are. Your relationships with your parents, relationships. Your relationships with your neighbor, everything is about building relationships. And I know some of y'all so close-minded. When you think of relationships, you only think that a word means one definition. I advise some of you to start looking three, four, five, and six to see what words mean. Uh, Relationships doesn't mean intimacy or whatever the case when you think of that word. Everything is relationships, work relationships, playing sports, team relationships. Everything is about relationships in life. The people that can master relationships have no issues with people. They have no issues with people and their skill sets that require you to build relationships. And one of them is being an effective listener and listening and understanding, as Stephen Covey always say, and I always quote this: listen to listen to understand instead of listening to reply, and building, and that is like a foundation of building relationships. So when we think about this whole thing about disrespect, it's about building relationships. It's about building relationships. See, I have a unique approach. I crack jokes. I snap back at kids. I do whatever. That's just the approach that I took, and I learned that from one of my mentors. Uh, and I took that approach, and it never failed. It didn't fail our relationships, and I know that he's been successful in that. And I kind of took that approach and how I handle situations. Greg had a comment: relationships are helpful, but the key to success is setting goals and doing what it takes to achieve these goals, regardless of the obstacles encountered. But even with goal setting, sometimes relationships help you accomplish them goals. You can have goals. I can set goals for myself, but you damn sure it's going to be somebody that plays an integral part of those goals that's going to help me get there. So that's where the relationship part comes in. I can't be say, oh, I want to be a doctor or a nurse or a teacher, but say I got these goals in mind, but I don't want to have no relationships with people that's already in that field. Or so again, everything is about building relationships. You can have your goals and all that stuff, but you better understand that there's people along the way that you're gonna need to kind of humble yourself, eat humble pie, and work with to be successful. You don't do that, you in for a battle. And that's the thing with when you think about when people you go on interviews and you're in the workplace and all that stuff, you got to have decent relationships with people. Now I'm quiet at work. I deal with who I deal with, but nobody can say, "Oh, he's disrespectful towards me." They can't say that. They
Mhm.
what they want to understand is he's quiet. Like how could I break through with him? And then the people that know me, they'll say, he's funny. He's real funny. Got jokes. Like you got to get to know him. And then once you get to know him, you're like, oh, but it takes that part. And that's the same thing with kids. You got to find a way to break through
Mhm.
as adults. And as kids, you got to find a way to navigate and be able to open up and try to trust someone to say they got my best interest at heart. Because if we keep living this divided world that we're living in, shit, we already see. Yes, all you gotta do is watch the news. All you gotta do is stroll through social media, and every incident that happened is dealing with some form of relationship.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now dispute that. Dispute that. Anybody dispute that and say, yeah, no, that ain't had nothing to do with it. It's some type of relationship that went bad. And that's the reason why shit is the way it is. Now I'm out passing the baton.
Now I generally I love when Mr. Hopper, I'm sorry, Mr. Hooper Post. I generally don't do this, but I need to so people understand one specific thing. I agree, relationships are the key to success, but setting goals and doing, and this is where I'm going to dissect the statement, and doing what it takes to achieve those goals, regardless of the obstacles encountered. Now, if you tell that to the wrong individual, guess what that individual does? They do things that are either morally or legally reprehensible because they think the ends justifies the means. Now, you got a person that needs $100 or that wants $100 because they want a pair of sneakers or they want the new game console that's come out. They short. So guess what? They say, Ma, I need $100. Well, son, I only got 50. You have to go find a way to raise the other 50. Okay. So you got one child that sets up a lemonade stand, sells candy, and they get that $50. You got another kid that guess what they might do? Might go around taking things that don't belong to them, trying to sell it to other people. Why? Because they don't have anybody that they can ask for money. They don't have anybody that they can ask. How can they make money when they're only 9, 10 years old? See, this is where it becomes difficult for boys as opposed to girls because nobody expects girls to go out and earn money when they're 10, 11, or 12. They can, but nobody expects them to. Boys at that age, go get a paper route when that was applicable. Go collect bottles and cans when that was applicable. You can't find a boy that's 14, 15 to 16 being allowed to babysit. Why? Well, figure it out. They think something might happen. So boys aren't given that leniency. They aren't given that leverage, that understanding to be able to make money. So they got to do things that might lead them into trouble, even though they don't want to. Well, little Johnny's been good. Little Bobby's been good. Little Ricky's been good. They were just trying to get some money the best way they knew how. That's the only thing they knew because mom didn't have the extra money. Dad wasn't around, no uncles, no older brothers. So that's why that becomes a dangerous statement if that's heard by the person who doesn't have that structure in place to help them. And this is what David is talking about with relationships. Because if that person has somebody that's in jail and they say, well, why is such and such in jail? Well, because he was out here stealing. For what? Well, he wanted a game console and he didn't have any other way to get it, then this is what he was doing. Now, he might only go to jail for a couple of months. He might be house arrest probation. But the thing about it is this: not everybody has someone that they can ask. Not everybody has somebody that. Go ahead, read that, David.
Greg will the smoke tonight. Despite David's anti-religious rant. There's no anti-religious rant. First of all, deal with that statement. When I talk about religion, I know that no matter what, you got to put in work in religion.
Mhm.
There's no mystery God that you pray and something's going to drop down on you. What they say, faith without work is dead.
Yes.
So if you don't put in the work, none of that stuff matters. So that tackles that part. So there are some things that have nothing to do with relationships, and yet we'll find nurture in religion, such as honesty, integrity, truthfulness, work ethic. How do you get to that point of honesty, integrity without being taught by someone,
Right.
which is a relationship?
Yeah.
Is a relationship. That stuff that it don't just sink in your head something. This ain't cartoons that some electric bolt hit your head and all of a sudden you like are honest and you have integrity. Somewhere down the line, someone showed you example, you watched, you observed, and you seen them and you say, man, I like the way they move. I like the way they handle things.
Hmm.
And you model that behavior. And that's relationship building. You can go on and on, Greg. You can keep digging and keep digging, but you're not gonna find nothing that say you can't do it out without that word relationship. Keep on digging, keep on digging, keep on digging, and you'll say, "Damn, you're right." You're gonna end up at a crossroad that relationships is the key. Shout out to Dr. Papalardo, who always said that no matter what, it's all about relationships. Everything is about relationships. It is in this world. Everything. You go to church and a pastor is preaching, it's about relationships. If his congregation can't stand them, they ain't coming there no more. They ain't coming. And that whole church gonna fold or whatever the case is. If you're a principal at school and the teachers and everybody turn their back on you, and you're screwed. If you're a head coach and you lost your voice in the locker room, you're done. So you tell me where that doesn't apply in this world about relationships, that ain't the key thing. What's up, Big Lemoyne? There's a relationship with God. Self-awareness key to relationship. I agree with both points.
we
Yeah.
we see this all the time. And Dave mentioned sports, and Dr. Papalato. I'm gonna mention the boxer everybody's familiar with, whether or not you watch boxing or not. Mike Tyson. The relationship he had with Cus D'Amato, virtually inseparable. Now, you had asked this question earlier, Greg, about ethnicity. What does it have to do? Sometimes absolutely nothing. Cus D'Amato was able to reach Mike because Mike was willing to trust. That's what Dave was talking about earlier. Trusting somebody that he didn't know because he saw something in Mike that other people said, you know what? He's a troublemaker. He got into trouble early in his life, and he's not going to be worth anything. I can't do anything with him. I don't think the world can do anything with him. This is why Mike now, to this day, when people deal with him on a personal level, they say he is by far one of the most respectful people I have ever known because he understood that the value he had to find was here first, out there second. And once Cus D'Amato put that in him, it rooted and it grew. We see this. We see this with all the humble athletes, no matter how much money they made, no matter who they are, they have a way of connecting with the common man. And when you can do that, you place it. Go mention God. I generally don't do this. You put yourself among the common men, which is why I'm sorry, Jesus was so revered because he walked among the commoners as if he was one of them. He didn't think he was any better than them. But you got some people, regardless of the profession, who think they're above the common man. And like David said, if you're a principal and you behave in that way, you lose the faculty. You lose the faculty, you can forget about the students. And it's the same way with any place where you're in a position of power. You have to be relatable to. You have to be somebody that people can speak to, they can approach, they can speak to you as if they've known you their entire life, regardless of what the problems in the situation is. Because once that is established, they say, you know what? I was wrong about this individual. You know what? They're not the asshole I've heard. I went into that office. I sat down and spoke with that individual. You know what? I don't have a problem. They they heard me. They didn't speak. They allowed me to speak. They allowed me to get out everything I wanted to. And I felt like I was heard. I felt like I was understood. Now, the person sitting across from him might be thinking, yeah, this person's SOS, FOB, or FOS, SOB. Sit out of bounds. I can't do anything with it. But you know what? I'm going to listen because it's important to them. So if it's important to them, you have to find a way to make it important to yourself. Because I'm in the position of dealing with the public in a particular uh, means, if you will. Now there are people that come up to me with problems. And I'm thinking, how dumb are you I'm thinking, but all the while I'm projecting. You know what? I understand completely what it is that you have to do. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let me walk you through this. And people say, you know what? I'm sorry. It's been a long. I say, you know what? I understand. And I go back there and I talk to my coworker. And I'm like, have you ever? He said, no, man, it's not you. I say, okay. Because sometimes I hear things and I think I gotta be judgmental. I have to be out of touch with the common person. And sometimes people just have a lot on their mind. Some people are just, they've been traveling 8, 9 hours by car, kids, wife nagging. They just want to get to the hotel so they can get to sleep. So we try not to keep them. And it happens. But the relationship is there. Like I've had people that come in and say, you know what? Thank you. I just wanted to do this and you made it easy. Sometimes that's all it's about. Sometimes people are just looking for a brief moment of clarity. They're looking for somebody to say, you know what? Let me take that for you. Let me help you with this. And that's a relationship. It's just
It,
how you
it,
relate to things. That's as simple as I can make it. How I relate to a stranger, how I relate to my siblings. I already talked about, the watch. This is an expensive watch for people that don't understand. And the reason why we're able to do that among our family, the reason why I went down and and and, and called Dave I didn't charge Dave that for that ticket because we had that kind of relationship. Dave never charges me for anything his family puts on. We had that kind of relationship. But that's something we worked at. That wasn't organic. I mean, I I, I I don't understand how else to put it. That everything you do starts from a hey, what you doing? Let's do this. The fact that I'm sitting here, Dave gave me the olive bench. He gave me the opportunity to be here, and I could be more grateful. So when the opportunity comes to do something, you damn right he's getting first. He's getting first nod. Why wouldn't he? But that's a relationship, and this is what we try to get people to understand about how we've got to this point. Anybody can do this, but are you willing to put in the time? Are you willing to put in the effort? Are you willing to develop the relationship? Are you willing to do the work in front of the camera? And are you willing to do the work when the camera's off? We do both. Y'all don't see what we do when we're not sitting here. The information we put together, the questions we ask people, the things that we seek out. Nobody sees that. They think we just sit down here, come and talk with about our experience. No, not all the time. Yes, we do have stories, but the stories only reinforce what we tell
and it's so crazy about the whole thing because, again, back to that point, no matter what, unfortunately, no matter what you do, you're building, like what Moise said, self-awareness.
you.
Self-awareness comes from probably people that taught you and schooled you on certain things to be aware, how to believe in yourself, how to pay attention to certain things or certain self concepts about certain things, but it's not something that automatically happens. And that's why some people don't get it at all. They have no self awareness. They don't pay attention to their surroundings, and they get caught up in things. If you think about it, even when Herb mentioned like of family events and different functions that go on, a lot of times when there's major issues, it's people that came there that didn't have a relationship with nobody. And I can give you a prime example. Like, we got stories. And I probably mentioned this before. Fight night. Everybody know I'm excited about fight night. So I was dating this young lady. And she was like, we should throw a fight party. And she like, you invite your boys, I invite a couple of my girls. And she's like, well, and I'm gonna invite some of my guy friends. And I said, no, no, no. Don't do it. Don't do it. She's like, why? They cool. They like boxing. Don't do it. But she learned a valuable lesson in what I was saying. So she threw the fight party. She cooked, prepared all this food. I told my boys, they came, had drinks. We had the drinks, and I forgot who was fighting. She invited some of the guys. But see, the issue was me and my crew, we joke a lot about certain things. We watching a boxing match. We predicting if we in the ring and who would knock each other out, but no bodily harm, just talking amongst each other, just having fun. And then, they like, oh, so what would happen if David, if you went against such and such? So we doing that. Then one of the guys she invited said, I tell you what, ain't nobody gonna knock me out. Huh? Huh? So then it got a little animated and kept going on. And listen, I'm quiet and all that stuff, whatever. But listen, we at the lady house that I'm dealing with. I know you're a friend, but I'm kind of overseeing this. So he kept on talking. Then it almost got to the point we started moving furniture around. It got
Yeah.
to that point. She finally, after all of that chaos, and you had to put people out and all that, I understand what you said. You said don't mix people who don't have relationships with each other during some times, especially when you bring um, alcohol into the equation, because we gonna joke. My friends, we gonna joke all day long. Barely seldom it's gonna lead to a major altercation that somebody gonna be ready to fight. But when you throw other people in the equation, and that's what happened. It was about to be some furniture moving up in there. But I had told her ahead of time, don't mix because we like to crack jokes and we like to have fun. We like to laugh. They may not be able to decipher, understand, or they joking or pick up that they're playing around because that's the relationship between us. You don't bring in other people who
Yeah.
haven't not established in that relationship. So it almost been was something that was good, food, drinks, a fight night, almost ended into a disaster. I was
Yeah.
about to tear some ass out the frame that night. So that's just the reality. It's about relationship building. You just can't include everybody into your relationship or your circle.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, because if a male doesn't have anyone that he sees role modeling certain things, then you know what? He's on his own. And depending on what he's doing, what he knows, or who he's dealing with, can put him in a bad way. So if he gets onto the world, he starts dating, and he hooks up with a young lady who's manipulative, conniving, and he ends up getting her pregnant, which happens a lot. And that's not necessarily her problem per se, it's his problem. Because society is never going to look at a woman being more responsible for her getting pregnant than they will look at it for a man getting her pregnant. Very rarely is a woman going to have to face being homeless with a child. But how many men do we know that are out here struggling, living day to day, that are on child support in arrears, and they can't make the arrears, so they can't get a driver's license, so they can't get a job, and the only place that is looking for them is the justice system, criminal justice system. That's the only relationship he's gonna have. Ain't nobody really trying to step in and help him, because before he can really get money, he's got to deal with the system, and they taking a nice little percentage of that check, and then the arrears is taking another piece. Hell, he really doesn't have a choice in terms of what he does. He can't live anywhere because he can't afford to. So if he doesn't have family where he can crash, for next to nothing, he's in a bad way. All because he didn't have a relationship with somebody that said, "Hey, look, before you start dealing with these women in a sexual manner, leaving the trail of unsupported kids, shall we say. I'm not going to necessarily say fatherless, because the only time I believe a child is fatherless is if that child's father has died. Now, every child that is not fitting that situation, they have a father. Now, is the father impactful? Is the father decent, moral standing, employed? Don't know. This is why it becomes important. Important, that's not a strong enough word. It becomes paramount for young boys once they reach the level of maturity and they start to develop their secondary characteristics in terms of sex organs. It becomes important for boys to understand, hey, look, what you got there is a weapon. Be careful where you put that weapon. Because any slicing and dicing you do that ends up in the wrong way can cost you in the long run. And they don't notice, they don't understand this because their mothers didn't sit down and tell them, hey, look, me and your father were doing some dumb shit. Ice Cube made the song "Doing Dumb Shit" when that came out on his first album. Doing dumb shit. We do it. Usually, the dumb shit we do doesn't get us in any kind of trouble. We can walk away from it. We could talk about it 20 years later. Yo, remember when you did this, and that? Yeah, man, I can't believe I did that. Can't do that when you got a kid. That ain't dumb shit. That's legal stuff. And that legal stuff lingers for years. And the effect and the ramifications that it has can move through generations. That's why we talk about the aces. It's real out here, and unfortunately, society has placed that burden upon men, regardless of the age. That once you enter into an agreement, if you will, with a female, and she conceives that child, and she has that, and she brings forth that child to birth, you signed a contract. You have legally signed a contract to take care of that child. There's no way out. And for people who are sensitive to certain things, you may want to turn away from this or mute this for the next 30 to 45 seconds. Why do you think Ray Caruth did what he did? And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Ray Caruth story, I'm not going to get into it in graphic details here. Go look it up. When you don't have or you lack people to tell you certain things, you behave in rash manners. Now, he already understood the situation because he had did it prior. He didn't learn from it. Why? Because he didn't have a good enough relationship with somebody who was going to tell him, look, you can't keep doing this. And we know about NBA, NFL players. Sean Kemp, former NBA Supersonics. Seattle Supersonics has multiple children. Former running back for the Bills is 13 kids. There's multiple stories out here like this. Because people then pull these young men aside and say, hey, look, you're going to be a target. You got to watch what you do. The New Orleans Pelicans, man, that has a child with, I can't recall the name right now. The Washington.
Zion.
Yeah.
Mm.
The story is full of these young men who keep going off the rails when it comes to this kind of stuff. And it's just like, look, society is not going to be forgiving for you. So you have to understand that, hey, look, nobody's not telling you not to have sex, but we're telling you be smart about it. Deal with women who are on the same wavelength, not financial, but the same mentality. They understand that you two are just going in here for enjoyment. That neither one of you are trying to come out of this situation being a parent. But they don't understand that. Why? Because they didn't understand the rules of engagement. They didn't understand that the first respect you gotta have when you're doing this stuff is yourself. This is why I'm adamant about who I deal with and who I bed down with. Why? Because I respect my situation enough to keep my situation or to want to keep my situation where it is. Some people don't care. Well, I already got 2 kids I ain't taking care of. What's the third one gonna matter? And I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. And the women don't care. Why? Because somebody's always gonna be there to cover for them. So when we talk about the levels of respect for for boys, it starts out, you know, kind of harmlessly. But when they get to be 14, 15, and 16 and start to get sexually active, all of a sudden now you want these boys who've never respected the repercussions that can come from making a bad decision to automatically right then and there start to develop. It's too late. It's far too late. They done started doing things and they getting out here and they running in chaos, living in chaos and replicating chaos. So what do you think you're gonna get when these boys start dealing with these females? Chaos. Chaos, chaos. And it ain't gonna change until somebody grabs the reins and say, okay, look, we have to start now with whatever generation it is, with whatever demographic of boys it is, and say, hey, look, this isn't acceptable. We're not gonna tolerate it. And they're gonna buck up against you. They're gonna say, well, what are you gonna do about it? You know it. You say, I ain't gonna do nothing with you. You're already gone. So we're gonna let whatever it is that you think you got, we're gonna let you keep that. Because you're gonna find out in the end that you have nobody to turn to, and all of a sudden now that road that you on that had you way over there, it's gonna bring you right back to my front door. And I'm gonna open the door, I'm gonna say, what are you doing here? 4 years ago, you told me there was nothing I could do for you. There was nothing I could do with you. You back at my door. Why? Now they got to humble themselves. And it might be hard for them to do. They're gonna say, hey, look, I had nowhere else to turn. Well, damn, when I opened my door the first time, you was all kind of huffing and puffing like you had the world by the balls. Now all of a sudden you find out that the world got you by the balls. So how you want to handle this? And you got to do like the Marines do. You got to do like the military do. You got to strip them down. And it might be painful. And they're going to fight you every step of the way. You can say, hey, look, the door is always open. You came in here of your own free will. You can turn around and walk out of your own free will. But just understand that once you walk out this time, there is no turning back. You can't come back to me a third time. And you give them that choice. What a lot of these young men have had, and what a lot of these people allow these young men to do, is they allow these young men to come in when they want to and to leave when they want to. And when you do that, you don't set boundaries, which is the next thing. So when you don't set boundaries for men, guess what they do? They violate. That's what David was talking about with the young lady. His boys know what the boundaries are. They know what they can say. They know what they can do. They know what they can get away with. They know what they can't get away with. But people that don't know you, they don't know that. So they pushing the boundary too. You say, okay, you look, dude, enough's enough. Either you change how it is, or like they said, we can get to moving some furniture in here. Calmer heads prevail. Some people got removed. Boundaries were restored. Calm restored. Cooler heads prevail. But when you don't have that there, next thing you know, people get hurt, police get called, charges get filed. Hopefully somebody ain't end up doing jail time. But when you got boys that don't know, that don't understand that behind your decisions are consequences and there's repercussions for those consequences, you end up in jail. I can't tell you how many young men are in jail behind something stupid, behind something she said about him and he did this, and nobody wants to hear all that. It's like, yo, did he put hands on you? No, but no. I don't care what he said. I can't let what somebody said affect me to the point where I want to put myself in harm's way. They ain't put no hands on you. Good. Now you understand. Leave them alone. Don't speak to them. Because if I find out that you're speaking to them, I got to cut you off because now you put me in a situation to where I could potentially end up being harmed. And this, and I'll go back to saying it, the first person people have to learn to respect is themselves. I put boundaries around myself and my behavior so I keep myself free from bullshit. I don't do it because I dislike people. I do it because I understand. I'm a proponent of making a poor decision if I don't have those boundaries in place. This is why I don't deal with certain things, and this is why I don't deal with certain women. People say, "Oh, that's drastic." Being free isn't drastic. Being free is what I like. I like coming home to this big ass house, these two cats, and it's quiet. And in order for me to do that, in order for me to go down and see my man Dave at a basketball game, I got to do certain
It,
things. And
it's
people
it,
understand that. You understand?
it's levels to it, and again, speaking as grown men, even even we have to establish, like Herb said, about boundaries. Like me, I probably wouldn't have went to watch a Wizards game if somebody else said, "Hey, if the school said we got a bunch of Wizard tickets, anybody want to go?" and they put it in my mailbox, that shit would have still been there to the end of the year.
Yeah.
But when you have relationships with people, you say, you know what? I'm gonna make that drive down here. I don't know how the traffic gonna be, but I'm gonna leave out early, get there, and do whatever. And that's what it's all about. And so when we think about our young people, we have to figure out how can we get them on board with relationship building. Um, some of them you say, hey, if we can connect them with sports, and then they got coaches and they got teachers, you know. And one of my probably saddest situations, and I bailed out of it, and I don't even know what's going on. And I probably spoke on him before, and I mentioned this before, but some people don't, they haven't listened to it. It was a student a few years ago. We have a certain thing called articulations, and I had spoke to the high school people. I said, well, the key thing is if y'all can connect. We used to call him Little Floyd
I'll be right back.
because all right, we used to call him Little Floyd because it was it was video footage him fighting, and he handled his business. So that was his moniker name at the school at the time. But when it got time for him to transition he was in eighth grade going to ninth grade. During my articulation meeting, I said, well, the thing is, you have to connect him with sports. He's athletic. Uh, as long as he's engaged with that, he'll do what he need to do if he can, if he's going to participate in sports. And I said that. I said, but if not, he could go the other route. And that's the negative part of relationships. Sometimes, not all relationships are good. Some relationships are negative, and he would gear toward the negative aspect. Well, probably once I said that, 2 or 3 weeks later, he got end up getting shot and was paralyzed. Um, and for a while, I was communicating with the moms, and I used to call him Little Floyd. So ultimately, I bought him some Floyd Mayweather gear, socks, T-shirt, and all that when he was in the hospital. And we kind of left off where he um, he was about to go through rehab. He had the afro. The kids have their little hairstyle, but I guess because of what he was going through, he was going to have to get his hair cut. And that probably was the last conversation. And I never followed up because it weighed on my heart because I had a relationship with him, but I knew that because I was his middle school counselor, that I wouldn't have that type of relationship any longer because he transitioned to high school, and it weighed on me. And because I was contacting the mother, like, how he's doing, and she was giving me an update. So, needless to say, I don't know. I probably failed that I don't even know what his state is. Uh, but it hurt deeply because all it takes is a split decision for people to decide to go one way or go another way, and then things falter and you end up with a life altering decision. So, this is the point, and I know we keep focusing on relationships, but that's what kind of brought 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 up this thing that it's important. And even if when you think about the root causes of the disrespect with black males, and again, we could go to the point of inconsistent discipline. Well, we know, I think Herb mentioned that the discipline factor happens in school. It also happens at home. It gets to a point at a certain time that if it's a single home and there's not a father in the house, a mother that's 5'6", 5'5", 150, 155, and you got a son that's 13, 14, he's 5'9", 5'10", 170, 175, 180. What can she really do? What can she really do once he get in his mind like, get the fuck out of my way, you can't do anything? It's really nothing she can do. And once you lose that control, kids gonna go. If you say, yo, you can't go here, you're like, move you out the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could say, oh, well, I'm gonna call your grandmother, grandfather, but they're older. And if you don't have that relationship, if you don't have that relationship with them, that will stop him in his tracks, that won't happen. My mother was fortunate. I mean, I was in sports. My brothers, they was part of the Nation of Islam. And I was semi part of it. I used to go to the mosque and all that stuff, but we knew at certain levels to reel it in as far as the respect issue. And it had to be hard. Your mother was raising three teenage sons, and we kind of close in age together, but we got it. Not everybody gets it. Not everybody takes that route.
Mm-hmm.
As far as young boys, some young boys they commit to the streets. And
Yeah.
you might be a woman, you might have three or four kids, and you might have two or three boys. Two of them may commit to the streets. You may have one say, "Hey, do the right thing and go on, work, go to college, and all that." But nothing is guaranteed. It's like a puzzle, whatever. You got to put all the pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we trying to build relationships, it's all for nothing. And again, not all relationships is positive. Sometimes you got to let go relationships
Yeah.
and say, this ain't it. This ain't worth it. Shit, if you're a kid and your father and mother, they on drugs or they constantly verbally and mentally abuse you, you may get to a point when you get older, like, I don't fuck with them no more. I don't talk to them no more. I'm done with them. And you may hear about them in critical condition. A critical condition, it depends on how your heart heals, and you may say, "Yeah, I'm gonna go talk to them," but some be like, yeah, "It's best that they go."
Yeah.
So we all always talk about when people like say, "Sorry for your loss," and I mentioned, and I learned from counseling 101. Some people will say, nah, I ain't sorry. I'm happy for this loss.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can move on. There no, they can't hurt me no more, physically or mentally, and I can move on because
Mm-hmm.
our relationship was bad, and now I can move forward. So Stop saying cliche stuff. Stop saying stuff that you see on TikTok and you quoting it, especially you grown ass people, because everything has more than one meaning. And not everything means the same thing to everybody. So that's where we're at. And I mean, this subject is, we can go on and on and on. We're only touching the surface. We never ever get through it. But if we even moved on to talk about the discipline part of it, the
Yeah.
consistent discipline. I mean, at some points it depends. You're not a boy is not going to get disciplined after you get a certain age.
Yeah.
There's no discipline left for him. You could
Mhm.
call your brother if you're a mother, like, yo, your uncle go come over here. But shit, if he busy with his own life and he married, got his own kids, he may say, all right, I'm gonna come see him. That shit might be 2, 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
By the time he get over there, you say, I'm gonna call your grandfather. Depends on the age. What are you gonna do? It depends. Unless he's a young grandfather and all that, people have their lives, and sometimes they say, it's just too much. I ain't answer a call. I ain't respond to the text. I ain't about to deal with that. So this is where we at. So that's where you get the inconsistent discipline from. Go to school. Depends on the administration. Depends on they trying to make the goal or look at numbers and all that stuff. Some of these kids can do what the hell they want to do all day long, and they never get disciplined. And hopefully that they connect with the right person and tell them, and well, that's gonna run short sooner or later. You think the stuff you pulling now, and you get out there and you keep doing it, somebody gonna get a hold of you. So we're not dealing with people. And I know a lot of times people try to brush it off, whatever, but it affects everybody. It affects everybody because you could be somewhere, you could be at a nice mall with your family, and all of a sudden, you have people rolling up. Say if it's a bunch of boys
Mhm.
and they on some shit,
Mhm.
and they decide that they gonna do this, or we gonna camp out in the parking lot during this time. Oh, we about to rob folks when they come in with their bags, come out. We about to get this or get that. Just never know. You just never know. And again, relationship building, disrespect, like all of the stuff, the culture filters down in this society and everything we do. I'll be amazed sometimes when I go out and do things and I see some of the stuff. I'll be like, let me hurry up and get done with this so I can get my ass back in my house, in the counselor's corner, and I'm safe, because I want no parts of this. I don't want no parts of this. And I digress. I'll pass it to the big bad wolf.
There was a post on Facebook last week about a young man, 14 years old, to what David was saying, 6'2", 140, 14 years old. Now, generally speaking, if a young man runs away from home, it's for one or two reasons. He's being abused, or he doesn't like what's going on in the home. So he leaves. He wants to be somewhere where he feels he's safe, he feels he's respected, and somewhere where he can actually trust the adults that are in that situation. Just like David said, just some adults are not fit to have kids, but the biological process doesn't discriminate. If certain conditions are met, fertilization occurs, and that's all that's necessary. You know, people aren't put through paces to say whether or not they're going to be a fit parent because, simply put, we don't know. We don't know until after it happens. This is why you see a lot of cases now being remanded to CPS, and a lot of things are reported to people or on people via CPS that are just erroneous. So CPS becomes overworked, overloaded, not to mention caseworkers and things of that nature. So it becomes difficult as a young man to find a safe footing if that safe footing isn't where he is living. So now he is forced to make adult decisions in terms of where he stays at. Now, like Dave said, if he's part of a football team, he can call his coach. He might be able to call one of his friends and say, hey, look, man, my parents are tripping again. They want to beat on me because of this and this. And here we go. I'm going to read this Lemoyne Post. My mother put me on a bus and sent me to my father's family when I was 13 due to my immature choices of chasing what I thought was a fly cool. I was not hearing her anymore. I heard those uncles in Mississippi, though, laugh out loud. Got great relationships with them. And years ago, and Dave can back this up, I said to the panel then, why don't y'all give these boys to their fathers? And what do we hear, Dave? A lot of negative feedback talking about these men don't want to raise these kids. I'm like, have you given them the opportunity? Have you given them the chance? Have you dropped them off and say, look, this is your son. I've done all I can with him. He's 6 or 7. I think it's time you step in and finish the job. Like David said, it's a puzzle. Women, you do a terrific job of instilling a lot of things in these young men. But you can't put that puzzle together by yourself. It needs somebody who can put them screws on and tighten them screws. So when society wants to try him, he's logical about it and he realizes that, you know what? This isn't worth the price of my freedom. Let me walk away from this situation. And whatever happens with them out there, that's their business. I'm going to make sure that I'm safe and out of harm's way. And when you do that enough, that reinforces itself. So when he becomes older and he potentially marries and produces his own children, he teaches them in the same way. This is how we got to where we were as black men. We're no different. We just have people that say, okay, you know what? They got to be taught. There's enough people around. I was the beneficiary, like I said, of excellent foster people. I also had older brothers who I could emulate. Yeah, I had one or two that went off the rails, but you know what? The rest of the family pulled together when they could. Lessons were learned, information was disseminated, and you know what? We're all doing pretty well. None of us lack for nothing that the others can't stand in and help out with. We go. I was just talking with my brother in DC about this, and I was talking to my older brother last night. We are blessed as a family. We are blessed, and you know, dare I say it, we are highly favored. And I'm not necessarily religious, but I do understand that there is a power that has overseen us to keep us out of harm's way for the most part. And for that, I will always be grateful.
Yeah, and that's true. And once you go back to that, like I said, it's a lot of personal testimonies with this subject. And I knew when my grandmother was gonna pass, but she kept going back and she thought about the relationships with us. It was three of us and my sister, but she felt blessed that she had grandkids that never was in and out of jail, never caused her stress, and she was really explaining she was coming to peace with everything, that she felt satisfied probably in the job that she did, and she did an amazing job, and that's what happened. And she wanted us to know, so I knew in my heart I didn't want to have that conversation, but I knew as the latter times I kept seeing her that it was coming to an end, her journey. But because of the relationship she had in relationships with boys, don't always, it's not always going to be with the father. It could be with a, it can be with a mother. It could be with a grandparent. Eh, But the bottom line is, it has to be consistency because
Hmm.
boys need structure
Hmm.
more than anything. Structure. You got to be sending the same message. I'm sure it's like her Red Lemoyne post when he got down in Mississippi. Probably got some structure. They probably was doing the same thing every day, or and you knew what to expect from them, and that's what it's about.
Hmm.
That's what it's about. And a lot of times you can't flim flam and switch up whatever. You got to be the same individual and know what you're getting from those individuals. So this disrespectful culture, no, it's bigger than what we think. And again, Greg, I ain't anti-religion, but I do understand that just people say, "Oh, pray," and all that. It's gonna take a little more than that. It's gonna take some nose to nose, mano to mano activity. Sometimes you got to get in somebody's face and be like, "This is what it is." I'm telling you what I'm my expectations of you, and if you do otherwise, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. So sometimes people need that message, but if that person realize shit, they've been consistent with that message, they never wavered off of that. So who am I to go against it?
Yeah.
But it's so many variables to it. Again, kids are in school for a certain amount of time. Then there's the community factor that plays into it. So it's like a game of tug of war. You could be telling them a certain thing, but then they get out. If the message ain't the same, then they're all over the place. But then they come in with a disrespectful nature and they say, shit, if I can cuss and carry on and do this and smoke weed and do that at home, how the hell y'all tell me I can't go? Um, I'm late for class. What y'all gonna do? Some of them will challenge you on that. And if they know, see, I'm part of I'm petty. I'm part of the cut off culture. Culture. I'll tell a kid in a minute. You cut off. I'm done. Don't say nothing to me. And I'm saying this loud so whoever can see it, cause they can say, "Oh, well, you shouldn't be like that." But I already know that that's the effective way. Whatever. I'm not gonna sit up there and go back and forth. We have
Yeah.
nothing else to say unless it's an emergency situation. We have nothing else to say because I'm not going to keep going back and forth. I'm not going to be arguing back and forth with a kid.
Yeah. And I think that's where a lot of people they um they lose, if you will. They don't understand that as a child, you don't have negotiating power. You don't have any leverage over an adult. You certainly shouldn't have leverage over what it is that you're going to do as a child. And I think that's where a lot of women don't understand, especially with boys. If you give a boy any kind of thought processes to whether or not he has power, guess what he's going to do? He's going to push. He's going to try and exploit it. He's going to try and take advantage of it in any way, shape, or form. And this is how boys learn manipulation. They say, okay, you know what? She thinks that I'm doing such and such. So let me call my man. Let me put my man D with this program that I'm running. And the mother don't know anything because she's caring. She's caring enough to think, oh, my little boy ain't getting in no trouble. He going over his friend's house. They gonna work on some math problems. Yeah, they working on some math problems. They try to multiply. Only problem is mom's not aware. So when mom gets to knock on the door from somebody else's from some mother's daughter talking about they have a discussion. They got to because the daughter's 6 weeks pregnant. She's like, by who? Your son. No, my son over his friend's house. Nah, no, your friend is not over whose house he claims to be doing math. He was at my house doing some furniture moving, and that kind of furniture moving, a record playing. We ain't talking about people um, hurting each other, shall we say? And people don't realize that you got to get them before they get them. And what I mean by that, before they get them, is before bad decisions get them, before the streets get them, before their hormones get them. Because yes, they going through that stage. They gonna want to do some things, but you know what stops them from doing things? Those boundaries. You put that seed in their head and say, "Hey, look, once you cross that border, once you enter that realm, and once you do certain things, you can't come back." Now, there's age appropriate behaviors that we all have engaged in. So no one is saying that you should restrict boys from engaging in age appropriate behavior. You know, sex is natural, but sex that leads to kids when you're not ready, that's dangerous because now you're setting up a template for which this young man is ill equipped to handle. So now it falls back on the families. And what happens more often than not is these families are not intact families. They're not built to handle being a parent when they're not done being, I'm sorry, they're not built to be a grandparent when they're not finished being a parent. So now you wonder why the grandparents are in their mid to late 30s when grandparents used to be in their 50s. The first time their child had a child, they were in their early to mid 20s, 23, 24, 25, 26. That way that parent was equipped to be a grandparent. Now these they're not equipped because they weren't there being parents themselves. So how can they get this young man to understand certain things? They can't. And like I said, the first person that anybody should respect is themselves, and they don't respect themselves enough not to put themselves in harm's way, not to put themselves in a situation where they got to deal with things that they're not ready for. I know it sounds harsh. I know people will say, "Well, you did it." Well, yeah, I did a lot of things, but you know what? I never crossed a bridge that I didn't have to worry about coming back from. I never put myself in a situation, or you know what? I never subjected my mother to a situation to where she had to actually take on something that I did. And that's what a lot of these people don't realize is that yes, young men can do things that are age appropriate that will get them a hand slap. That's to be expected. That's how we learn.
And I think
Go ahead.
the bottom line to tie it all together, we talked about this earlier, structure. Kids, young adults, they like structure.
Hmm.
They can try to dispute and say, "Oh, this person too strict" and all that stuff. But when they see what's going on and they see it themselves on TikTok, Instagram, social media, they're happy to be able to come to a home that they have heat, food, clothing, shelter, and if they work a job, they can work a job and they can come home and they're like, "Yo, I'm at peace."
Hmm.
Um, a father and mother, if it's just the father or mother, there ain't no violence going on here. I'm good. They ain't cussing me out, carrying on, and all that stuff. That's what it's all about. So it brings me back to the subject when people are like, "Oh, when they get 18, they gotta go," and I still dispute it. Go where?
Yeah.
Go where? Unless it's on some college campus, and even then, they're coming back home during their breaks or whatever the case. If a kid doesn't come home during their breaks, and they never want to come home, you
That's a
may want to question something. You may want to question the way they feel about their childhood or their upbringing. Because most kids, if they felt safe, because kids want to be safe and secure, and if they feel, oh, it's break, I'm tired of this, oh, I need to decompensate. I can't wait to go home to my room and get in my bed, be at home. If they don't never want to come home, or they're like, oh, I'm going here for Thanksgiving break, I'm going here for spring break,
mm-hmm.
and you're a parent and they don't want to come to you, might want to dig deeper. You might want to dig. Something went on that they don't want to be a part of that. Something went on. I ain't trying to start up nothing. I'm just telling you.
No, but
I'm just
it's
telling
funny you
you.
say that because we saw that in the movie with Boys in the Hood. You know
Mm.
how I can't remember um Lawrence Fishburne was the father of. I want to say he was the father of the other dude. But we see it. We see the movies all the time, where that father role is necessary to set an environment to where kids want to come home. I know when I was in college and spring break is as much as I was away from my mother when I was younger and in foster care, I couldn't wait to go back home. Like you said, in your own bed, doing your own thing, man. It was always cool. And I was a little older than the average college student when I first started. I was 21, going on 22. But it was always nice to get home. It was always nice to go back to the bar, hang out, see a few people, and get right back to school. Couldn't wait. But it was those were the things that I valued because I realized what it took for my mother at least to maintain that. Because my mother was never financially well off, but she always did well enough, even with systemic help. So it was just like, hey, look, I'm out in the world now. I don't need to hide what I do, for lack of a better term, because I was dealing with females at that particular point, but I was always careful. You know, I had relationships with females that people didn't know about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I was out doing my thing, but I was always responsible, and I've always said, and I'll reiterate that if I had conceived a child out of wedlock, that I would have stopped dating until I got to the age of where the child was able to take care of himself. Now, mind you, I have always been employed. Matter of fact, going back to the age of 17, me being 54 in a few days, it is rare for me. I think there was maybe a year or so period where I wasn't where I wasn't employed. But from the age of 17 till now, we talking stretch almost 40 years. I've always been employed, so I've never wondered where money was going to come from. I never worried or concerned myself about who was going to do what for me because I was always there. I was like, you know what? I don't have to worry about anybody. I don't have to worry about anything. Even even if I had lost a job, I still had the unemployment. I still had some money I was saved up. And far be it for me to understand economics then like I do now, but I always knew one thing that I needed to be prepared for whatever might come my way. Whether I made the decision to do something or whether a decision was made that had an impact upon me. Because I remember one time the place I was working at closed down, didn't have a job. I was like, oh, whew. I'm glad I put that money away. I had about 5, 6 grand put away. Unemployment came through, covered some things, and I was able to make it work. Matter of fact, I'm going to disclose this now before the new year, 12/8/25. My goal by this time next year is I had $10,000 put away in a fund that I don't know what I'm going to do with, but that's my goal. You hear it here. You hear it first.
Bring it this way. Send it this way.
Hey, you might get season tickets to Wizard game. Who knows? But that's
Uh,
that's one of my goals for next year, man. Along, yep, getting the motorcycle, as my mom used to say, getting the motorcycle.
don't do it. Don't do it. No, her. You can barely ride a bike. You don't need to get on the motorcycle. Don't do it. And we about to close this out in a minute, so you can give your closing point. But don't get your ass on no motorcycle at 54 like that, like you a speed demon. Don't do it. And that's
No, man,
relationship building.
just
I'm
thank you,
telling you not
man.
to.
I saw what my brother had. I was like, yeah, that's a nice piece of machinery. Closing statements, man. Look, it all boils down to this: the foundation for respect for young men starts with the decision. Yes, the decision the mother makes in terms of who fathers a child. I'll tell you the story. I was dealing with this one female. Her teenage son just came back home from staying with his father. Well, she wanted me to stay the night. Not that that was a problem. Me staying the night wasn't necessarily a problem. But she wanted to engage in some record playing. Now, I'm not too fond of playing records while her son was home. And she didn't approve of that. Why? I just thought it was disrespectful to the young man to play that kind of a record. And I'm not being
Get it
father.
on.
Yeah. And he being down in the hallway. I just like, if she's gonna play a record with somebody, that let that be his father. That way, that engagement isn't weird, isn't disrespectful, because it's disrespectful to the young man. And I know there's some fellas out there saying, "Shit, I'm gonna play that record." Well, when he looks at you a certain way, when he says that you ain't my daddy, understand that you, no pun intended, sowed the seeds of disrespect the moment you started to play that record with his mother with him in that house. See, we don't understand the dynamics of that as men. We want to yield to our nature so bad that we don't care what damage it causes any other place. And when we don't care what damage it causes to any other place, that's the end result. And of course, as always, growth and understanding occurs in the gray area. Godspeed. See you next time.
All right, my closing comment. We're not dealing with this subject. We're never dealing with it. Only thing we could do is put out layers. My bottom line, my emphasis, and shout out to Greg. Love you, brother. And
Yep.
always bring in new information as you being a Caucasian male and trying to have the fortitude to understand the mindset that goes in with black males. Um, and it doesn't change whatever color you are or whatever the case is. My whole thing is, oh, this is all about relationship building. It's all about relationship building. They always say it only takes one person to that you could gravitate, and whatever they say or whatever, that could be the person that can reel you in when you not right. And and I think that's the bottom line, that we have to look to try to build more relationships and have more positivity. But it's work in progress with this whole thing as far as young people, black boys, and all this stuff. We just want to get the conversation going and keep it
Yep.
going and keep talking about it to let folks know it's not going anywhere. We're going to talk about it. But with that said, we out. Man, we used to go on, but we getting older and we getting more mature, so we got to slide out. And I'm looking at the clock. We got like 29 seconds. We got to go. Got to go. But we out. Again, Everybody enjoy their week. Be mindful. Do what you got to do. Stay safe. We'll see y'all next time.
What?
Peace. We out.